Lawrenceville, one of Pittsburgh's premier locations for art, live music, and dining spots. Butler Street houses a plethora of restaurants, bars, boutiques, furniture stores, and coffee shops. The Lawrenceville area has grown tremendously in recent years, but it wasn't always this way. In the early 1700s, the area now regarded as Lawrenceville was settled by the Delaware Indians and was an important trading post for both English and French settlers. Lawrenceville was founded in 1814 by William B. Foster, father of composer Stephen Foster, who was born there in 1826. It is named for Captain James Lawrence, hero of the War of 1812, famous for his dying words, "Don't give up the ship." Lawrenceville was incorporated into a borough in 1834 and annexed by the city of Pittsburgh in 1868. The Stephen Foster House is located inside Lawrenceville on Forbes Avenue. Stephen Foster was an American composer who was born in Pittsburgh on July 4, 1826, and died at age 37 on January 13, 1864. Stephen Foster is regarded as the father of American music. He wrote more than 200 songs, which are still performed and known today. The Doughboy statue is perhaps the most defining symbol of the Lawrenceville neighborhood. It stands guard at the confluence of the neighborhood's two main arteries of Butler Street and Penn Avenue. It was never intended that a statue honoring veterans be erected. The people of Lawrenceville simply got caught up in the patriotic fervor of World War I. Many residents of Lawrenceville went on to serve in both World War I and World War II. In fact, Lawrenceville resident Thomas Enright may have been the first soldier killed during World War I. According to the Lawrenceville Historical Society, a historically prominent bridge that no longer stands is the Ewalt Street Bridge, or the 43rd Street Bridge, which was erected in 1870 and served the community until the opening of the Washington Crossing Bridge in December of 1924. This bridge was a covered bridge that connected Lawrenceville with Millville. Allegheny Cemetery, located in Lawrenceville, encompasses 300 acres with over 15 miles of roadways. It is one of the most affordable and accessible cemeteries in the greater Pittsburgh area. As stated on the Allegheny Cemetery's website, it was conceived in the minds of Pittsburgh's leading families and businessmen in 1844. Allegheny Cemetery was created to be far more than the typical country burying grounds of that age. Stephen Foster is buried here, alongside founders of major industries such as Samuel Keir for petroleum and Alfred E. Hunt for aluminum. Over 124,000 people are buried in Allegheny Cemetery today. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, new ethnic groups such as Poles, Croats, Slavs, Swedes, Italians, Russians, Lithuanians, and African Americans arrived through immigration.
I was born in 1962, and actually what is today Children's Hospital. At the time when I was born, it was called St. Francis Hospital. I did spend most of my childhood right there in Lawrenceville. Lawrenceville was a busy town. It was a nice town. It was a very ethnic town. I'd say that there were a lot of Polish, German, and Irish people living there. When we were kids, it was a nice community, but it also was a little bit rough community, inner city fighting and things of that nature. But you had to get along with your neighbors. It was a more of a sense of community because everybody was very close. We always would have a large group of kids that we could play with. Some neat things about Lawrenceville is that there are two parks in Lawrenceville. One is called Leslie Park, and that's where our swimming pool was when I was a kid. But then there's another park called Arsenal Park. The reason why they called that Arsenal Park is during the Civil War and other wars, or that was literally an arsenal. There's actually a cannon. There's an old cannon in the park still to show the remnants of when it was basically a huge artillery supply for America. My father was born in 1920, so in 1941 he was 21, so that was pretty unfortunate for him because he was the perfect age to fight in World War II. He was drafted and he went and he fought, and he actually worked his way to become a sergeant. And then when he came back to Pittsburgh, of course, he moved right back to Lawrenceville, and there was a steel mill that was called Blawnock Steel. He actually worked first as a steel worker, actually making the steel. Then my grandfather and grandmother immigrated from Poland, and they actually moved to 43rd Street right in Lawrenceville in 1907, and that house that was probably built in 1887. The house has been in the family for about 115 to 120 years. It was owned first by my grandfather, then my father owned it, and then I bought it off my father, and now I'm using it as a rental property. And my son Kevin, he's actually going to Duquesne, and he's living there in Lawrenceville right now. I remodeled the old house that was my father's and grandfather's house, but I did maintain that property, and I brought several other properties, and now I am a landlord in Lawrenceville, and the community has really changed. There's a lot of more professionals living there. A lot of the tenants that we have are actually people that either work for Uber or work for Children's Hospital or work at the CMU robotics plant. Recently, some of the top restaurants in Pittsburgh are actually located in Lawrenceville, which was kind of weird because when I was growing up, fancy restaurants really didn't exist in Lawrenceville, but they do now. There's been quite a few changes in Lawrenceville, mostly to more professional and upscale residential living. Overall, I would say that it was a good experience living in Lawrenceville. I enjoyed living in the city. All in all, I would say that Lawrenceville is a beautiful community and has a lot of history. It's been a flourishing community for more than 200 years.
Lawrenceville has improved tremendously and blossomed into the neighborhood it is today. According to Lawrenceville Corporation, about 11,100 residents call Lawrenceville home today. Only 14.2% of residents have lived in Lawrenceville for over 35 years, which demonstrates how the neighborhood is modernizing. To its residents, Lawrenceville feels like a village. It is both old and new. It maintains its industrial-era aesthetic with narrow row houses. Butler Street is its main attraction. Some of the most popular dining locales include Industry Public House, Coco Cafe, Piccolo Forno, and the Church Brew Works, a brewery created from an old church on Liberty Avenue. In addition to food, drink, and retail, Lawrenceville is also home to Arsenal Lanes, a long-standing bowling alley with a full-stocked bar. In 2014, Row House Cinema opened up on Butler Street, a movie theater that showcases popular classics. Lawrenceville was recently used as a location for some scenes of the film Love and Other Drugs, starring Anne Hathaway. Now let's hear from some locals and their favorite aspects of living in the neighborhood.
Living in Lawrenceville, it's nice. It's pretty central to everything you want to do. There's a lot of businesses around, nice neighbors, nice cars.
Living in Lawrenceville is really nice because the people around, they're extremely nice, and there's a lot of businesses literally up the street on Butler Street. So if I want to do something on a Friday night, I can just start walking around and I'll find something to do.
You know, I mean, you'll see hipsters and you'll see like young kids and you'll see old people. It's like a mix of like new people coming in because of the revitalization of the neighborhood and like the old people that used to live here.
For fun in Lawrenceville, we like to go to the park. There's 2 parks down the street. We also like to eat. There's airbag food right there in the corner. It's really good. And there's different types of food. And there's a bowling place right there.
There's banks, there's a vape shop, there's bowling. There's many pizza places. There's like Supreme Pizza.
There's Anthony's Lockers right there, which is very popular. Pittsburgh shoe store.
Yeah, there's like a lot of niche stores because they're catering to like the new clientele.
There's a lot of coffee shops. There's a lot of bars. There's Natural down the street as well. There's Children's Hospital.
The UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh opened a new facility in Lawrenceville on May 2, 2009, moving all patients from Oakland. This addition has helped spawn Lawrenceville's transformation, bringing new job and business opportunities to the area. The New York Times has since called the neighborhood a go-to destination. Transplanting young hipsters and lifelong Lawrenceville residents dwell side by side, as relatively affordable housing has attracted those looking to buy or renovate property.
This is the mosaic that the 4th grade class graduating in 2018 made with arts and residence, and it was over a decade ago, and it was for the new completion of the Children's Hospital. Nice. Lawrenceville has a rich and diverse history. You know, there's from everything from, you know, the industrial era of the Gilded Age history when the steel mills First came here with Carnegie and then later bought by U.S. Steel and J.P. Morgan. Many residents served in World War I and World War II in Lawrenceville, as per the Doughboy statue in World War II. My own grandfather actually fought in World War II in the European theater. He was in the D-Day landings. He fought in Tunisia. This was actually my dad's great uncle's house that lived here, and this house has been in our family name through different parts of the family since about like 1907. Actually, the back of the house is where the horse stable used to be before it became was replaced with a garage. So we really our family has deep roots in this part of the city. It really became an upscale place over the last couple of years, and
it's like not done.
And we are happy to be a part of it.
Lawrenceville has experienced a lot of change and revitalization in recent years, but it still maintains some of its old traditions, such as its annual Memorial Day parade on Butler Street. Lawrenceville residents also show their appreciation for Pittsburgh history with a Stephen Foster Music and Heritage Festival. Arsenal Park remains a popular recreation spot, hosting 4th of July events each year. From its founding in 1814 to the bustle of its streets today, the community has morphed into an upscale residency of Pittsburgh.